Hi. So here I am again, Bronwyn here at the No BS with Bronwyn. um, so I am here again to do another short video, although this may be a two-parter because I want to talk about depression and anxiety, but I realized I don't know if I've actually ever on one of these YouTube videos kind of talked about my background or like who I am. Um, so I thought, I'm going to try not to say all the time. I thought it might be important to talk a little bit about who I am and my background and sort of my history. So I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in a rural town called Export, PA, and pretty lower middle class kind of family. My father was a chemist, and my mother was a homemaker, a housewife, and I have two older sisters. And yeah, pretty normal, life. My dad worked for the federal government, making explosives and tear gas and things like that for the federal government. And I actually never knew what he did until I got older. And now it sort of makes total sense why my father sort of had the behavior that he did. He was a depressed person and had a lot of anxiety and a lot of anger, and often his behavior would actually often be like a bomb. Funny, because that's what he used to make as a chemist. And there was a lot of verbal abuse in my family, some physical abuse, but mostly verbal abuse. And a lot of times it would go off like a bomb. We'd be at the dinner table and I don't know, my mother might forget one little thing, and then my dad would go off about that, but then he would kind of go through a litany of everything that he was angry about for the last like 30 years of his life. And a lot of that, I think, related obviously to his own personal life and his expectations of what he had hoped to be or wanted to be. My mom was sort of my mother's still alive. My father is dead. He's been dead now since 2015. And my mother was sort of a non-emotional person, not emotional. My father was actually the more emotional person. A lot of times it was anger, but he, in his later years, would cry kind of at the drop of a hat. And my parents are older because my oldest sister could practically be my mother. She's in her 70s, and when she was going off to her prom, I was like 3 years old. So there's a huge age gap there. And then I have a middle sister who's closer to my age, and I grew up with her in the house. But try to not just get into every detail here because it'll take too long. But I didn't grow up in an overly religious family, even though I went to Bible school, and we probably went to church when I was little. My parents are Christians, and but they sort of stopped going to church and stopped reinforcing the Bible and any Christian values when I was a kid. I don't know if they did a lot of that when my older sister was a child, but and in terms of politics, my parents voted Republican. They were not like staunch Republicans, but my dad was a conservative, and I think he believed in small business, and I think he believed in law and order, and what was right and truthful. And my mom was also a Republican, but later on she sort of changed her stance. But anyway, growing up, I was an athletic kid, an outdoors kid. I loved running around. I was sort of a tomboy, tom girl. Of course, today that would be interesting to see what I would be doing socially with everything that's going on in the transgender movement. But yeah, I was a tomboy, and I played outside, and we had, you know, trees and big yards and fields, and I was running and playing. And so my parents put me into ballet and gymnastics to sort of deal with my ADD, my attention deficit. And actually, gymnastics helped a lot. And I still coach gymnastics. I still do some gymnastics, not all the crazy stuff anymore, because my body can't quite do that any longer. But yeah, being a gymnast really helped me, structured my brain. It gave me discipline. It gave me something to focus on. It encouraged me. It gave me self-esteem and athleticism that I still do today and keep up with today. Unfortunately, when I was about 12, 13, you know, to no fault of my parents, I'm not blaming my parents, but when it was time for me to start menstruating, no one other than like the movie I saw at school really told me much about it or what to do. And so that was a very difficult and strange time for me as a kid. And I felt like a boy. I looked like a boy. A lot of my friends were getting breasts, and you know, I think back to that time now because it was a difficult time, and your body's changing, and mentally you're unstable, and emotionally you're unstable, and it's a very vulnerable place for a kid. And I was also a gymnast, and so I was struggling at school. I was struggling in my gymnastics, and there wasn't really an adult to talk to me in a good way, and that's unfortunate. And you know, but I'm fine. Like, I'm happy to be a woman, and I think about it now, like, if I had been growing up today and that was happening, with all the social media influencing, and with if the parent is not present to be engaged in your child's welfare and understanding of who they are emotionally and growing up, you can be groomed by these transgender groomers who you're in a vulnerable place emotionally. And this is a scary thing for me because I think about it in relation to my own life and where I was at that time. And, you know, you have to let kids go through that uncomfortable time, through puberty, and deal with those uncomfortable emotions and feelings around their body and how they look, because you will get past it. You will get past it. I had a very difficult time from probably like 10 till I was almost in my 30s. I had an eating disorder. I was bulimic and anorexic, and I realized then I also struggled with some bipolar issues that I believe my father was also struggling with, because depression runs in my family. But you know, the answer is not to just have a quick fix and let's, you know, change your gender because you're confused and your puberty is making you confused emotionally and physically. And you know, you have to let kids go through it naturally. You know, whatever you want to do after the age of 21 is, or even 25, in my mind, like that's fine. But like, you know, you can't even drink, you can't even drive, you can't buy cigarettes or vaping or anything like that until over the age of 18. So to think that you can make the decision to like change your body and think that you're a male when you're a female, or you're, you know, you're a male and you think you're a female, or you're a female and you think you're a male, blah, blah, blah. No, like parents need to be involved, and they need to be there to help their children and to know that this is not okay, and it's not okay to do any of those things. I'm absolutely disgusted by by the fact that there's parents being yelled at by transgender activists saying that they shouldn't be involved in their kids' lives. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. And, you know, it was me that went to my parents and said I had a problem with my eating disorder. It was me who went to them and said, look, I have a serious eating disorder and I need help. And I was strong enough to know that, even though my eating disorder continued on for many years later, till I was, you know, 30 or my early 30s. And I got help, and it was actually a behavioral psychologist that helped me. I had many therapists and psychoanalysts, but actually it wasn't them that helped. It was a behavioral psychologist, somebody who helps with the changing of your behavior. So I just want to say that, you know, if you know that there's something wrong, like I knew that there was something wrong with me when I was eating and throwing up all the time in the toilet, in a towel, and putting it under my bed, and like just some really disgustingly gross things that I won't get into here. You need to, if you know it and you're conscious of it and you can help yourself, say something to somebody. Reach out and talk to somebody. I mean, I told my mom, and she knew, even though she was not going to come to me and tell me. She knew because she was hiding food in the house. She was hiding ice cream and cookies and anything else in the house. She would hide it because I was always after the sugar, but she would hide everything, and she knew what was going on. I know that my mother knew. I knew that my grandmother knew because my grandmother was living with us as well, my dad's mother. And everybody knew, but nobody could truthfully come to me and talk to me. And I needed to help myself, and so I did. And so I was strong enough to do that. Not everyone is, but I just encourage you to really try to reach out and ask for help. And I'll stop there because it's 12 minutes now, and it's really hard to talk about your life story here. And there's some other pieces here that I will get to. But yeah, I didn't have an easy childhood. And, you know, you have to work through things and have the courage to stand up and say something and speak the truth and speak your word impeccable. Speak your word impeccable, which means don't say something if it isn't true. Don't gossip. Don't tell lies. Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to other people. Because you know what? In the end, it's only going to hurt you, right? It's just going to hurt you. And that's a big one. So that's the first sort of part of my story. There's some other things I'll touch on about childhood and my eating disorder. And, you know, I still carry all that anxiety and depression from my eating disorder and the things that happened in my family today. And I think that's why I still struggle with depression and anxiety and body image. And but I'm proud of who I am now, and I'm proud to be a woman, and I'm proud to be a strong woman that has a strong man, and I love him, and I rely on him, and that's good. That's an okay thing. So that's my video for today. If you're struggling with an eating disorder, bulimia, anorexia, or just overeating, feel free to reach out to me. You can write a comment or send me a message. I think YouTube has that on there. I'd be happy to talk to you and talk a little further about eating disorders. Okay, thanks so much, and have a great rest of your Saturday. And signing off. If you like this channel, please subscribe, hit that bell button. I would appreciate it. I'm trying to get this a little bit more bigger and to do more. So if you like the things I'm talking about, please subscribe, tell other people, tell your friends, share the video. And thank you so much. Have a great weekend, a great rest of your day. Signing off.